All right, so now we have an argument on Capitol Hill of whether the higher ups in the Trump administration let classified information leak through the app called Signal. We've got the full leaked text, or at least they tell us it's the full leaked text for the Houthi PC small group, which we're going to read some of in a second. The question is Tulsi lying? Is Radcliffe lying? The director of the CIA and the director of national intelligence, are they lying to us? Because it's very important. And people are shocked that Tulsi would lie, that the CIA director would lie. Remember what Mike Pompeo, former CIA director, said? We lied, we cheated, we stole, we had whole training manuals. Ha ha ha, and everybody laughs.
What's the cadet motto at West Point? You will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I was the CIA director. We lied, we cheated, we stole. It was like we had entire training courses.
They are expert liars. I don't care if it's a Democrat administration or Republican administration. They are geared to lie. So why were we over here at the Bab el-Mandab Strait? By the way, the Bab el-Mandab Strait, this is the focal point of this text and the military operations. This right here, from here to here, is about 20 miles across. It's called the Strait of Lamentations. It separates the Red Sea from the Gulf of Aden, which goes out into the broader Indian Ocean. So this right here is the focal point of this military operation, just so everybody knows. And let's just listen to some of this banter back and forth between Congress and Trump administration officials.
The President and National Security Advisor Waltz held a press conference yesterday with a clear message. It was a mistake that a reporter was inadvertently added to a Signal chat with high-level national security principals having a policy discussion about imminent strikes against the Houthis and the effects of the strike.
She said this today. They could have said this yesterday. Hey, we effed up. We made a serious mistake. We're going to correct our mistake and this will never happen again. But you know what? It's already out there. How many times have you guys used the Signal app or a similar app thinking that it was secure when you were really transferring classified information? If this indeed was classified information.
National Security Advisor has taken full responsibility for this, and the National Security Council is conducting an in-depth review along with technical experts working to determine how this reporter was inadvertently added to this chat.
So we're going to conduct an investigation on ourselves, and believe us, we're going to get back with you on it.
The conversation was candid and sensitive, but as the President and National Security Advisor stated, no classified information was shared. There were no sources, methods, locations, or war plans that were shared.
Sources, methods, locations, and war plans. Nothing like that. Just the kinds of weapons, the targets, the sequence, and the timing of strikes. That's all, but none of that other stuff.
Ideally, these conversations occur in person. However, at times, fast-moving coordination of an unclassified nature is necessary, where in-person conversation is not an option.
So she's still sticking by, in her view, the fact that this is all unclassified.
I'm also aware that a lawsuit was filed yesterday on this issue. As a result of that pending litigation, I'm limited in my ability to comment further on that specific case.
Of course.
My Office of General Counsel will be in close contact with the Department of Justice on this matter.
Of course it will.
The idea that this information, if it was presented to our committee, would not be classified.
I know this guy's a cruddy Democrat. Please try to remove yourself from the left versus right paradigm brain soaking of America. Step back and try to look at this. I mean, we can only deal with what's given to us. This could be a complete lie, but we do have the text. We see what they've said. We see who is involved. J.D. Vance was even in there saying things like this. Let me just show you before we get back to this video. Let me just show you. Look what he said. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself. But there's a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, seeing where the economy is, etc. The messaging work, you mean propaganda? We've got to properly tenderize the minds of Americans so they can be on board with this, to which Pete Hegseth says, and I'm just going to summarize this. Waiting a few weeks or a month does not fundamentally change the calculus. Two immediate risks on waiting. Number one, this leaks and we look indecisive. Number two, Israel takes an action first or Gaza ceasefire falls apart and we don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. And then he says, we are prepared to execute. And if I had the final go or no go vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis, Pete says. I see it as two things: restoring freedom of navigation, a core national interest, and reestablishing deterrence, which Biden cratered. And of course, the argument is now, as it's always been, is, hey, the United States will act as the world savior and we will establish safe shipping lanes for global commerce.
Y'all know is a lie. That's ridiculous. I've seen things much less sensitive be presented to us with high classification. And to say that it isn't is a lie to the country. I want to ask the generals now.
Guys, these people kind of lied to the country.
The NSA is principally in charge of intercepting things like signals intelligence from other countries. General, I want to ask you, if your organization, your agency, intercepted something like this from Russia or China or some other country, would you consider this classified information?
Representative, we would be classifying based off of our sources and methods.
But if you did your job and collected it from the Russian Foreign Ministry and the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of Defense and the President's Chief Advisor, there is no way, having sat on this committee for 9 years, that somebody would come in with that information and give us something that says, unclassified, you can walk out of this room with this information and give it to whomever you want.
Guys, having read over the text, and you can read them, I'll put the link in the description for you so you can read them yourself. I gotta agree with Castro here. I gotta agree with him. I don't know how any of what they said could be construed as declassified or unclassified.
With all respect, you and I worked on the committee at the same time. Tulsi, you and I came in together. I've never had an issue of beef with you. John, you and I are both from Texas. Y'all know that's a lie. It's a lie to the country.
In this situation, those are operational details.
They are operational details, but again, as you quoted the DoD instruction, it's about operations. So as you further go down into what are the operational details, I think as we had a discussion yesterday, the important aspect, I think all of us are very familiar.
This is classified information. This is classified information. It's a weapon system, as well as sequence of strikes, as well as details about the operations. And so I think that, just piggybacking off of what some other members have said, using the DoD's manual as
not just the sequence of strikes, the timing of the strikes,
well as the executive order in operation today with the Trump administration, this text message is clearly classified information. Secretary Hegseth has disclosed military plans as well as classified information. He needs to resign immediately. He needs to resign immediately, and a full investigation needs to be undertaken with regard to whether other similar signal chats are occurring in this administration.
Director Gabbard, I want to direct your attention again to the text chain where it says, just confirmed with CENTCOM, we are a go for mission launch. Does that indicate to you that there is about to be a military operation?
Yes.
Director Gabbard.
Thank you for directly answering a question for once.
Earlier in this hearing, we heard about the DoD's classification standards. I want to now turn my attention to your classification standards. You're the Director of National Intelligence. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence classification guide says, quote, information providing indication or advance warning that the U.S. or its allies are preparing for an attack, end quote, is to be classified as top secret. Are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Director Gabbard, have the Houthis indicated an ability to shoot down American aircraft?
Yes.
They have in fact done so, haven't they?
Yes.
Including MQ-9 Reapers, haven't they?
That's correct.
And that was one of the systems used.
MQ-9 Reapers are the drones that Obama used to love to use.
In the attack recently, that's the subject of this discussion, is it not?
Correct.
I spent my life in service to this country. I deployed 3 times to combat in service to this nation. I learned in that time in service that responsibility is core to leadership. You accept responsibility when things go wrong. You admit mistakes. You set the standard from the very top. It is completely outrageous to me that administration officials come before us today with impunity, no acceptance of responsibility, excuse after excuse after excuse, while we send our men and women downrange to do incredibly difficult, incredibly dangerous things on our behalf. And yet, nobody is willing to come to us and say this was wrong. This was a breach of security and we won't do it again. It is outrageous and it is a leadership failure, and that's why Secretary Hegseth, who undoubtedly transmitted classified, sensitive operational information via this chain, must resign immediately. There can be no fixes, there can be no corrections until there is accountability, and I'm calling on the administration to move forward with accountability.
Director
Guys, nobody's heads are going to roll on this. This is it's just a wild prediction coming from out of nowhere. Nobody's heads are going to roll. Nobody's going to be held accountable. Nobody's going to lose their job. That's just if Hegseth is forced to resign, I will be absolutely shocked. By the way, Obama utilized both the Predator and Reaper drone system.
Gabbard, yesterday before the Senate Intelligence Committee, specifically when answering Senator Kelly, you repeatedly said you did not recall any discussion in the Houthi PC small group discussing operational details, strike targets, the type of vehicles and military units involved, or the timing and order of strikes.
She totally lied about that, man.
Do you stand by your testimony from yesterday that you do not recall any of the discussions regarding this type of classified information? Yes or no?
My response in the Senate yesterday, yes, I stand by that response. Obviously, the release of the screenshots that came from that chat group today were a refresher on what happened. As I said earlier,
Guys, she is a very, very sincere liar. They all are, but she's exceptionally good at lying.
was not involved with that portion of the chat, so it did not.
And by the way, just in case you are, I don't know, persuaded somehow to be sympathetic to Tulsi Gabbard, just remember she is Tulsi gun grabber Gabbard.
Come to my recollection yesterday.
Thank you. So I take that as you stand by your do not recall yesterday stance when you're asked those questions.
Yep.
You've been in office 43 days. Director Radcliffe has been in office 62 days. This was considered the first major military operation using lethal force of the Trump administration. Was this the first, this was probably the first time that you've been involved with a discussion like this on a thread. It was not discussing, you were not on a group chat discussing where we're gonna go for lunch. You're discussing putting men and women of the armed services in harm's way. That's a major decision. So, and when did that happen? 10 days ago? Okay, I'll answer that. It happened 10 days ago. Here's the point. Like something of this magnitude, it's something that you would not forget. It's something that most people, if you're taking this job so seriously, that you would not forget.
Just as a reminder, this guy's a hypocrite too. Nobody cares about the service members. Nobody cares about fellow Americans. Nobody cares about the Constitution or upholding unalienable rights. This is all dog and pony theater. Nothing's going to come of it. When the fake dust settles and the outrage mob goes away and they go on to the new thing, nothing's going to have happened.
I mean, since I've been on this committee, there's been days that I have woken up in the middle of the night from the things I learned in SCIF. So deciding to use military force is something hard to imagine. So the do not recall doesn't pass the smell test.
Did you really only hear about this yesterday?
The exact timeline I'm not aware of, but yeah, I think it was yesterday or the night
And now
before.
that another day has passed, do you
Well,
believe,
actually, it was the night before the hearing.
now that another day has passed, do you believe that it's now time potentially for the FBI to open an investigation into this?
I'm not going to comment on that
Because you're the director of the FBI, you don't believe it's appropriate to comment on that?
because there's a process in place. There's an ongoing litigation, and the National Security Council is reviewing this matter. And I'm not going to discuss any open or closed
That
investigations.
ongoing investigation, literally, the lawsuit happened today or yesterday afternoon, and the idea that you don't have an opinion on this at this point is frustrating to me.
No, it's not.
My
I'm not
final
going to
question,
prejudge any
reclaiming my
matters,
time, my
and the men
final
and women of the
question, reclaiming
FBI
my
will
time, reclaiming
call
my
the
time,
balls and strikes.
reclaiming my time,
not
sir.
you.
By the way, a SCIF is a sensitive, compartmented information facility. They were just talking about SCIFs right there. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought, please. I know it's very difficult in this day and age for people to, withdraw from the cult of personality and they like Team Red or they like Team Blue. But what do you think? Was this classified information? Should they have been using a Signal app? Some of these higher ups, these Trump administration officials, were using their own personal smartphones in a foreign land, which could be subject easily to hacking by enemy forces. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And what do you think? Is anybody's heads going to roll? Anybody going to be held accountable for this? Or are they just going to go on with business as usual? Leave your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video.